This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the Riptide. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the top-tier brewing stand. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
It's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think, Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy. Hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Greetings.
Back in the studio again.
Yes.
So
I'm always happy to be here.
Yes. And we've got our good friend Tasty.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here.
Tasticles, the Greek god of brewing. We've got Scott, man on the board. I was just talking about the Fuller's acquisition by Asahi. Which really just crushes me because, they held out, they've been brewing on that spot for 350 years. And anybody who's telling you that Asahi's not going to sell the property is just fooling themselves because they paid £250 million. The brewery business generates something like £20 million for the brewery business. The pub business is like another 20 million in revenue, but the Asahi bought the brewery. So is Asahi going to sit and plug away and make £20 million a year for the next 15 years to pay off their purchase of the brewery, or are they going to sell that property for £250 million? People say it's worth £100 million, but it's property in London along the river, which is really hard to come by. They're not making any more of it. They're going to be able to sell that property for probably, £200 million and get their money back out of it right away. And then we've lost the last, of the traditional breweries that was in London.
It's been in the same spot for 350 years? 350 years. That is unbelievable.
Yep.
Wow.
And Fuller's has had it for that family. Fuller, Turner, and Smith been there for 175 years, something like that.
Wow.
So, there's stuff stored away in there that people don't even know what's there. It's all these old buildings, and it is a really cool place. But man, it just crushed me. Absolutely crushed me.
Sad to see that go.
Well,
maybe they'll build like a Walmart supercenter or something, Jamil. I mean, chin up.
Right. Maybe it'll be really expensive condos that I can't afford. Well, speaking of things, really nice things that I can afford, I want to tell you about Blickman Engineering, pro brewing side. They're your nano experts. Their hybrid brew houses, available from 2 to 7 barrels, blend the simplicity of home brewing with the needs of a pro brewer. All at an amazing price to get your brewery operating quickly and profitably. Looking for the best quality and longest warranty in cellaring equipment? They understand compact brewing spaces and have developed fermenters and bright tanks that are tuned to nano brewery needs. Blickman Engineering Pro Brewing. Check out our amazing hybrid systems, 3.5 barrel systems starting at just $12,500. That includes the chiller, the controls, electric heaters, hoses, and much more. Looking for a smaller pilot system? They got that covered too. Check them out, blickmanengineering.com. And I want to say, fine sponsor of this show and fine guest of the show. We've got John Blickman himself joining us today. How you doing, John?
Great. Glad to be here. Much warmer than where I was over the weekend.
Thanks for taking the time for us and doing these shows.
All right. Happy to do it. Happy to be here.
Well, all right. So in the last show, we were talking about weight and pH. Again, important measurements. We've been doing a series of measurement shows. And, I think it behooves everyone to listen to these and to kind of fine-tune what they're doing, because it's not enough to buy a tool, but you need to know how to use it and how to use it correctly and how to get the most of the tool.
I agree. Yeah.
Yep. Speaking of tools, I'm such a cut up. Today we wanted to talk about see if we can fit all this in here. We want to talk about dissolved oxygen, specific gravity, pressure, and length, or distance if you prefer. Girth? No?
Distance. Go.
Nothing?
It's a tough crowd here. Jesus.
Circumference?
Yes. Why don't we start off with pressure measurements? Okay, I'll start. I'll jump right in. A lot of times people, when you're working homebrew, tend not to do too much with pressure measurements unless you're kegging, right? Tasty.
Really.
In kegging, what's important about pressure?
Well, obviously, to keep pressure within its allowable range. I mean, you have to make sure that you don't overpressurize something beyond its limits of the container.
Right, burst your keg,
a keg or carboy, whatever you're putting pressure into.
Mm-hmm.
That would be relevant. So you need to have some way to measure that, or have some sort of safety, like relief, pressure relief valve. But when I think of pressure, I generally think of, a keg, where I'm pressurizing a keg to
carbonating,
to carbonate it or to decarbonate it, depending on what my situation is.
You're looking for fairly precise pressures, trying to get a fairly consistent carbonation value.
Right.
Correct?
Makes a big difference, especially on dispensing beer, and commercial brewers seem to have trouble getting beer to the correct pressure. It's always amazing how that seems so variable.
Well, and if you look at it, we're talking about temperature measurements as well. Temperature goes along with pressure to get your proper carbonation of your beer. If you're having trouble, serving, a lot of times, like I said during one of those shows, I think I have bought probably 50 or 100 gauges since opening the brewery, and we check them all, and the vast majority of them are off when we get them. And some have been off as much as 7 psi.
Wow, that's a lot of...
Right.
That's a big difference in pouring pressure. That's a pretty... Right. Fairly narrow range, and that's a big part of the range.
Absolutely. Wow. And so that also brings up the point of range. When you're measuring the pressure coming out of the tank, if it's CO2, you need to measure at least 800 psi of a CO2 tank. But if you're measuring nitrogen, it's in the 3,000, 3,500 range. So a gauge for nitrogen is going to be, reads up maybe 0 to 4,000. For CO2, maybe to 2,000. And then when you'll step down that pressure, you're going to use a gauge that is, 0 to 60 or 0 to 100. And that's going to be a little bit more accurate. But, you can't overdrive that either. You can't hook that up directly to the tank. What about calibrating pressure gauges?
That's... Probably you're most familiar with that. I have not had to do that much myself. There's the dead weight testers, but they're fairly expensive.
Well, we're talking about weights and pressure gauges. That's how you test a pressure gauge with a known weight, and they are real pricey. So, and if you go to a place, there are places that will calibrate gauges for you, and that's essentially what they use. It's these known weights, and then it provides a certain amount of pressure on a sealed chamber
of a certain diameter,
right? And that should be known. But what I was able to do was to buy a very large gauge, a large diameter, it's maybe a 7 or 8 inch dial that was a certified gauge. Get that in. We try not to bump it around. I hooked it up to a manifold with a vacuum pump and a little hand vacuum pressure pump, and then connections for all the different types of gauges we use. So we can hook that up and then pressurize it to 15 psi or 8 psi and just check that the gauges match. And that we believe, this is our standard. I bet you it's not as great as, going off to, some government lab.
And, to measure standards or something like that.
But it's pretty darn close. Yeah. And at least, we have something that we can say, here is our proof, our calibration, our measurement.
It's what we do here. It's our procedure.
And if we need to get something calibrated, we just get that one gauge calibrated, pay for that to be calibrated, and then, once a year, and then we check all our gauges against that.
If they match up against that one, you figure, well, we're good.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So that's one of the ways that we've been doing it. But,
as a homebrewer, I'm trying to think, is there any way that I have, a CO2 gauge that I use to carbonate my beers to, and I'm all dialing it into like 12.5 degrees is where I want it, and, or PSI. And, I sometimes go like, really? How do I even know that that's even correct? Like, wish there was some way.
Well, that's the fascinating thing.
Way to compare.
Because, those temperature pressure charts for CO2 volumes, there's no, this doesn't work. That is absolutely correct. That is fact. That's not speculation.
Yeah, those are printed.
Those charts are based on, the physics of pressure and, temperature. So it's 100% correct. Mm-hmm. The way that doesn't work for you is if your temperature measurement is incorrect or your pressure measurement is incorrect. Right. That's when that chart doesn't work for you.
Or both.
Right. But that's based on, scientific reality. Yeah.
So there's a formula. It is a formula, actually.
So, I don't know. Let's see. Let's do this. Let's take a short break. And when we come back, I want to see if we can come up with some simple way to calibrate homebrew gauge. We'll be back right after this.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Are you looking for a simple brewing system that's great for all grain brewing, but everything on the market seems to be full of compromises? Blickman Engineering has the answer. The Blickman Brew Easy All Grain Brewing System. The Brew Easy is a complete system with easy upgrades and a beautiful compact design, perfect for any size brewing location. At its core, the Brew Easy is built on 2 gorgeous Blickman Boilermaker brew kettles, a high-temperature March pump, and either a top-tier gas burner or the new Boil Coil electric heater. The Brew Easy adapter lid allows the pots to stack on top of each other, forming an efficient, strong, and compact brewing setup that comes in 5, 10, and 20-gallon batch sizes. Upgrade your Brew Easy system with full automated control by adding a Blickman Tower of Power temp controller and make moving around easy with the Blickman Kettle Cart. The Brew Easy is modular. If you already own a Boilermaker kettle, you can build your Brew Easy by purchasing just the modules you need. The new Brew Easy all-grain brewing system. See it today at BlickmanEngineering.com and brew with Blickman quality on your new Brew Easy. Do you know the three most important rules in brewing: sanitation, sanitation, and sanitation. And no one does it better than 5-Star Chemicals. 5-Star knows sanitation. You can only sanitize clean equipment. And 5-Star knows how to clean, too. For craft brewers and home brewers, 5-Star has what you need to keep your fermenters, serving tanks, kegs, and draft lines sparkling and free of any beer-spoiling bacteria. PBW, caustic, acid cleaners, Star San, SaniClean, lubricants and defoamers, pH stabilizers, and more. 5-Star Chemicals has cleaning supplies, safety supplies, heat exchangers, pumps, hoses, and valves. And 5-Star is proud to offer eco-friendly products that exceed customer expectations. If you have a cleaning problem, you need the 5-Star solution. Visit 5starchemicals.com or call 800-782-7019. 800-782-7019 and get the 5-Star treatment today.
Back to your hosts, Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. Putting the testicles in technical. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. And do you want to learn more about the microbes responsible for making your sour and farmhouse beers? If so, join White Labs at their San Diego, California facility or online through their live webcast March 12th for their Sour Beer Essentials Workshop. This class will explore the finer points of fermenting sour beer, intricacies of handling the yeast and bacteria, the history and traditions of these beers, and so much more. For more information, head to whitelabs.com/education. All right, we're talking about pressure and how to calibrate pressure gauges. Tasty and I really couldn't come up with anything during the break.
Well, sort of like
building your own weight.
You could do in your garage or anything like that.
But, what we've done at our shop, because we do a lot of pressure measurement stuff and temperature measurement and all that, and we talked about the temperature one in the previous show, which just invest in a really nice, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, just get an accurate gauge that you keep as your calibrator.
Right.
And then, if you want to spend the money to send it in and get it checked, annually or every other year or whatever, you can do that. What we've got is a digital pressure gauge that we use that I think at the time we spent like $120 on it, so kind of a little bit more expensive, $150. But now you can get some the digital gauges for $75.
The ones I see that are considered certified, they're over $1,000.
Yeah. I mean, you can get some really high-end models that carry the NAST certification and all that. But the one thing that you'll get with a digital type pressure gauge, they use, some of them will use like a ceramic capacitive type transducer or a piezo type transducer, things like that. But they're not as fragile and don't go out of calibration as easily. Right. And then with the electronics, they're a lot more linear than your typical pressure gauge on a cake system. Yeah, they're like a board-on too. If you look inside,
my concern is
just keep that and use that for your reference.
My concern is that if it's off 1 psi out of 100, that 1 psi when you're talking about carbonating your homebrew is substantial. You need quite a bit of precision. Okay, so I just came up with one other thought. You get a tall column of water, right? Air on one side and the column of water, and then so essentially a tube, a piece of hose, right? You get a 30-foot piece of hose. On one end, you attach your pressure gauge, and you lift both ends 15 feet in the air, and then you start filling one side, right? You fill that side to a known number of feet of water, and that would be a precise pressure.
A simple manometer, old
school.
There
you go. Cheap and should be quite precise. But I think one of the things to do is maybe for a homebrew club to get one of these large gauges, a manifold to hook up to common gauge types, and then get that calibrated. And the homebrew club could do this, and people could come to the meetings and check all their gauges against it. I don't think I spent $100-$150 on that, and that would be a nice thing for a club to do, I think. Mm-hmm. And you get super precision and
yeah, that'd be great.
Kind of a social thing.
A club member could buy a brand new gauge and use that as their reference. They could hold back one, just go and have it calibrated to this calibration device.
Right.
And just put that aside, and they can use it as their own calibrator.
Well, there you go. All right. All good ideas. Let's talk about dissolved oxygen. All right. Measuring DO. I think the only way to measure it is with a meter.
Drink your beer and find out it tastes like shit.
But yeah, that is a good topic.
Well, and one of the things that I always said was, well, if you're not set up to measure DO, you should just be consistent in the amount of time and the volume that you're putting out, and at least measure those. And then if you've used too much dissolved oxygen, in a batch, then the next time you brew it, you reduce the amount of time or volume that you're putting out. And if you measure, your liters per minute, and you measure your amount of time, now not all of it gets transferred to the wort, but at least you've got a measurement of, okay, I've put 10 liters of oxygen into my 5-gallon batch over a period of 2 minutes.
That's some micron level.
Yeah, let me go to 8. Let me go to 12. At least you've got something. Yeah. But the dissolved oxygen meters for checking wort dissolved oxygen, they're pretty cheap these days and pretty accurate. Really? It's when you want to get into measuring parts per billion that the meters become very expensive. When it's parts per million, you're down to like $100.
Lamont sells those,
and they're quite accurate and very good for measuring your wort dissolved oxygen. And why does measuring your dissolved oxygen matter?
Fermentation.
Big part of fermentation doesn't have a good dissolved oxygen level. Yeah.
Absolutely. Critical.
Critical.
Consistency of fermentation and, that's the main thing, consistency.
Yep. Well, and that's why I always measure time and at least the volume of air you're putting in or oxygen you're putting in.
And if it turns out to be too much, then back off that. At least you're measuring.
At least you're doing something.
Something, yeah.
So dissolved oxygen meters, there are some that, again, are meant for inline for breweries where they can handle the heat of sanitizing and cleaning. They're built to be mounted in a T that is in your wort path, and they can be cleaned with caustic and sanitized. Then there are the ones that you just have the little probe like on a pH meter, and you just stick that in there. I think for commercial brewery, you should at least have some basic meter. If you're not, then you're going to struggle. And as you get money and you can afford these really expensive probes that can handle, being put in place and cleaned in place. That's a nice thing to have as well. Let's see. There's ways to calibrate them as well.
Yeah.
I forget how to calibrate them. It's nitrogen and then it's
boiled water.
Mm.
And I did this myself when I was writing the aeration section of How to Brew. There are tables, the CRC and online that give you the equilibrium pressure and dissolved oxygen at various altitudes. Mm-hmm. There's experimental data out there that basically say that if you're at 10 ppm at this altitude at standard temperature and pressure, if you boil that water for an extended period of time, you can knock that down to, I think it's 4 ppm. Mm-hmm. Is the kind of like the asymptote level. And so that you can use that. You boil water for a while, put the probe in, and that's how I was able to verify that I was getting, reasonably accurate, parts per million values for my oxygenation experiments.
Yeah, the problem with the boiling water, you have to let it cool before you can put the probe in. Right. Because they won't handle boiling temperatures unless you've got one of those special probes. I think the ones that come with the probe, they talk about just gassing with nitrogen. As your zero, and then maybe gassing it with oxygen, I guess, for whatever reading that would be. I think critical item to have. There's not too many other ways of measuring it. There might be some titratable way of doing it. That's the way pretty much everything was measured back in the day, I think. Before they could come up with meters for things, they had some way of measuring things. Okay. All right. So that would be dissolved oxygen. Anything else to add to that?
I don't have anything.
Yeah, one thing that I had done is done a range. You'd mentioned about just knowing if I do it this time and this volume. I actually just measured in a carboy different flow rates. I used one of the oxygen flow regulators that actually always puts out a consistent. You set the flow rate, not the pressure.
Right. Get one of the medical ones. Because they actually versus one of the welding ones,
right? And I just immersed the probe in there and did it for various times, and then just measured the dissolved oxygen until I got to 10 ppm, and then I know, okay, I just need to run it at this many liters a minute for this amount of time, and I'm right on it.
Yep. There you go. Consistency. Time and volume will always help you. All right. Let's see here. Now, where are we at? Yeah. All right. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about specific gravity next. Right after this.
Are you looking for a simple brewing system that's great for all grain brewing, but everything on the market seems to be full of compromises? Blickman Engineering has the answer. The Blickman Brew Easy All Grain Brewing System. The Brew Easy is a complete system with easy upgrades and a beautiful compact design, perfect for any size brewing location. At its core, the Brew Easy is built on two gorgeous Blickman Boilermaker brew kettles, a high-temperature March pump, and either a top-tier gas burner or the new Boil Coil electric heater. The Brew Easy adapter lid allows the pots to stack on top of each other, forming an efficient, strong, and compact brewing setup that comes in 5, 10, and 20-gallon batch sizes. Upgrade your Brew Easy system with full automated control by adding a Blickman Tower of Power temp controller, and make moving around easy with the Blickman Kettle Cart. The Brew Easy is modular. If you already own a Boilermaker kettle, you can build your Brew Easy by purchasing just the modules you need. The new Brew Easy all-grain brewing system. See it today at BlickmanEngineering.com and brew with Blickman quality on your new Brew Easy.
Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and freshest ingredients and the best customer service in the business. Check out their brand new patent-pending Mash and Boil 110-volt electric mashing and boiling unit. This compact all-stainless unit lets you mash, sparge, and boil just about anywhere that has a 110-volt plug. Double-wall construction adds to efficiency and safety, and a precise thermostat keeps temperatures where you want them. Unlike insulated buckets and converted coolers, multiple temperature rest mashing is easy to do, all for under $300. They also feature the Mark II work pump, a magnetic drive high-temperature pump that does the work of pumps that cost twice as much, as well as exclusive Brewer's Edge regulators and quality Keg King kegs and disconnects. Check them out today at williamsbrewing.com to brews their vast selection. Are you a member of the White Labs Customer Club? If not, you should be. It's the easiest way to earn free stuff for turning in your old homebrew labels from either Vial styles, or pure pitch. All you have to do is save your labels and redeem them for things like free yeast, an exclusive White Labs t-shirt or sweatshirt, and even the opportunity to brew with the yeast man himself, Chris White. Signing up is easy. Just go to whitelabs.com/customer club, fill out the registration form, and then mail in your labels. They will return the favor by sending you awesome White Labs swag. Go sign up today at whitelabs.com/customer club. White Labs, pure yeast and fermentation since 1995.
Learning to brew has never been so disgusting. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. And this segment is brought to you by Brewers Publications, publisher of the Brewing Element series, a 4-part set exploring the fundamental ingredients in beer: water, malt, hops, and yeast. Each book offers detailed scientific examination, practical instruction, and recipes for both homebrewers and craft brewers. Find the Brewing Element series at brewerspublications.com. I tell you, you got like half the books authored here between water and yeast, right?
A good portion of them, for sure.
There you go. I think that's a solid series. It's worthy of being on any brewer's bookshelf.
On mine.
There you go. All right, so we're going to talk about specific gravity next. Tasty, why is specific gravity important to brewing?
Well, it's the measure of how much sugar is in concentration in your liquid, and obviously that's what we're doing. Is we're taking sugars and adding some yeast and making a fermentable beverage.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the more control you have over that, the better product you're going to get at the end. And
right.
Your hydrometer is your friend. It's the best, cheapest instrument any brewer, home brewer
mm-hmm.
or professional can
mm-hmm.
have by far.
Well, and again, consistency. If you're trying to brew a beer and perfect a beer and make the best beer possible, which everybody wants to do. I'm shocked at the people that, I want to make the best beer in the world, but I don't want to measure, specific gravity.
Anytime, the beginning, the end, or whatever. They don't care. Yeah.
You're kidding me. I mean, how are you actually going to repeat this beer?
Well, how'd you know how many hops to put in if you don't know what you're making?
Right. How do you know if the thing attenuated properly? How do you know? Again,
I know it's done.
We check pH every day. We check specific gravity every day, and that's how we know things are progressing properly. We chart it against time, and if something's fermenting slower, there's a problem. If it's fermenting faster, there's a problem. It should always, the yeast will repeat exactly what they did before.
In the same environment.
Time and time again.
We'll do that.
Yep.
And if they don't repeat, then you go like, well,
you messed up something.
There's an environmental issue here. The yeast is giving out, or it's too good, or it's too bad, or whatever. It just needs to be looked at.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. All right, so Palmer, what are the ways you can measure specific gravity?
Well, the hydrometer, as Tasty says, is the most basic measurement.
Mm-hmm. Reliable and accurate too, yeah.
Yeah. It does need to be calibrated, and certainly when you buy a hydrometer at the homebrew shop, you should check it, calibrate it. When you get a chance, put it in some distilled water at the correct temperature, and you should read 0.
Mm-hmm. And where do you read on the hydrometer? Bottom of the meniscus? Top?
Yeah.
Where? Right? Bottom of the meniscus.
We had a debate about this.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's the bottom of the meniscus.
There's no debate.
That's what we, I think that we settled in on.
Okay.
Because the little lip that goes up constitutes a very small amount of the volume compared to the flat level.
Everything I was taught in lab at UC Davis was bottom of the meniscus. Yep. Where the thing curves, that line, that's where you read. You don't read up on the sides. The up on the sides, like Mr. Blickman is saying, is negligible in the weight of the thing. You don't want it stuck to the side of the glass. You don't want a ton of air in the solution. You want to let the air get out of the solution. If you have bubbles in there, it's actually a lot of air in there will reduce the density of the solution.
Mm-hmm.
like John's saying, temperature. There's a
bubbles stuck to the
hydrometer. Spin your hydrometer,
particularly when you're measuring carbonated beer that's been fermenting and it's got some carbonation in it.
Right. You can slosh it container to container to decarbonate degas your solution, and then spin the hydrometer to flick off any bubbles that are stuck. Make sure it's not stuck against the side. It's important to have a nice level surface. Set that up there so that when you measure, it's not tilted over and dragging on the side of the glass. Generally, it'll overcome most of that, but if you're looking for a precise measurement,
and it's relatively easy to make a precise calibration solution too. You just need an accurate gram scale and weigh out. Make a 10 Plato solution. Nice thing about Plato is that it's grams of sucrose per weight of solution. So a 10 Plato solution is 10 grams of sucrose in 100 grams of solution. And so to make that, you would weigh out 90 grams of water and then 10 grams of sugar and mix it together. And there's your 10 Plato's calibration solution.
Right. There you go. Okay. Now, hydrometers are popular. They're inexpensive. Although, I have some very expensive hydrometers we use, in the distillery. And we have some sort of pricey ones we use in the brewery. And it kills me every time somebody breaks one.
Yes.
But for the distillery, they have to be certified. There has to be paperwork on them. But you can use hydrometers to measure all sorts of things. We can use them to measure glycol solutions, alcohol. They have them for urine. They have them for pretty much anything that's in solution. They have a hydrometer calibrated for it. Yes.
And you can get them in different ranges. I've got a standard one that I use for wort, and then I have a finishing hydrometer that I use for just checking my final gravity, and it just has a shorter range that's spread out more, and so I can get a more accurate reading.
Higher precision. And then accuracy is based on calibration. You taught us that in I think our first show, right? About
correct.
Temperature. Right. Same thing in the brewery. If you have a commercial brewery, especially, you need a range of hydrometers. The bulbs tend to be fatter. The stems on them tend to be longer. And then you need larger hydrometer jars. But like John Blickman's saying, there's the shorter range. I think they tend to go from 0 to 8 Plato. And then you'll get one from 8 or 6 to 12 or 14. And, you get one from 12 to 25. And this, shortens the range and spreads out your marks and gives you a much more precise measurement. And when you're doing beer, they give you some leeway, but they are serious about you actually reporting the correct ABV on your labels. And getting these measurements correct are important to that. So you need to adjust for temperature as well. Either get your solution to the temperature that your hydrometer is calculated for, or use a correction table. That's important. What else to add about hydrometers?
One interesting thing is you talk about Plato. There's bricks. There's specific gravity, and
it seems
that homebrewers are more focused on using specific gravity, and pro brewers mostly use Plato.
Yes. At least in the U.S. I think in Europe I see a lot more specific gravity.
Europe and Australia.
Yeah, and when you talk to them, you're like, Plato, and they're like, what? I'm like, they're thinking you're talking philosophy or something.
Yeah, here we spend to work in both.
Right.
Because both are around. So.
Right. But yeah, specific gravity, either one's fine. It just depends on...
I prefer specific gravity myself.
It does. I like it too, because, I mean, you already have a certain amount of precision built in versus Plato, where you're talking 1 Plato, 2 Plato, then you've got to go 4.1, 4.2, and then,
multiply it.
But any of those are fine. Now, John Blickman, what about going to refractometers? What's the deal with refractometers? I mean, hydrometer, very accurate. It doesn't matter what the color of the solution is. Refractometers seem to, not necessarily be as good with beer.
I think they used to be really expensive. I mean, several $100s. Mm-hmm. And here recently they've come down a lot. And so people have started using them, and people have started talking about these things like, what are they best for? Are they calibrated for a sucrose solution only? Are they calibrated for beer wort? And you've got, the wine industry uses bricks, and homebrewers predominantly use specific gravity. And then one of the other things that you can do with hydrometers that you really can't do as easily anyway with a refractometer is measuring it with alcohol in it, meaning after you've had some fermentation. They don't read as there's not the corrections for those like there is for hydrometers. But the one thing that's really nice about them is you just need a couple drops of solution and you can get a very quick reading. And they talk about this big fancy, it's automatic temperature compensation, blah, blah, blah. What they're really, it's a bunch of marketing ploy for. Right. You're putting a couple of drops of hot solution on a glass
metal
plate that's cold. Yeah. And it's going to cool it very quickly down to, the temperature of the device, and then you can measure it. So it's not really there's no magic going on.
Well,
it just cools those drops.
One of the things when I was using, you can get the, $20, $25 refractometers from homebrew shops and, online. And what I found was, you'd add those drops. If you waited, you would see the bricks or the specific gravity start to drop, I think it was, or rise.
I found them just climb a smidge, and the line gets a little sharper as
it cools, right?
Yeah.
And so I would always cool my drops before that. I'd take a metal spoon, get a little bit, let it cool, or put an ice cube on it, and then drop it on there.
Make sure to dry it, though.
Right. The other
don't want to be mixing it with water and diluting it.
The other thing was the color of the wort and the type of wort made a difference. So what I ended up doing, I found that calibrating the refractometer to 0 with water was a waste of time because it was always inaccurate when I dealt with wort. So what I would do was get a good, precise measurement with my hydrometer, and then I would take drops of that, put it on the refractometer, and I would calibrate the refractometer to that. So refractometers tend to be precise around a given solution and a given, color. So if you're making the same beer all the time, it's great. And these cheaper ones, they have, commercial brewery grade digital refractometers that have, kind of software to, adjust for the fact that you're measuring wort, and they're designed for brewery use. And they're, a few $100, I think. I don't have one. I hear good things about them, but we just use hydrometers because they're super precise and easy enough to use, and we don't worry about throwing away a couple hundred mils of liquid.
Yeah, and I use the hydrometer or the refractometer more as a check when I'm going through the mashing, and so because I need that reading pretty quickly.
Right.
And by the time you get that into a cylinder, you get it cooled off, you get your hydrometer in, especially if you're going down, where you're checking your specific gravity. If you're sparging and, you want to stop at, 011 or wherever you choose to stop. It's nice to use it for that. So when I'm dialing in a recipe, I'll use the refractometer to get a quick reading. But when I'm done, I get a sample and put that aside and just let it cool off to see exactly where I was.
Right.
So it's just a great quick check tool.
Yep. And handy and not that expensive. What else was I going to say? Right. And just about any hydrometer is good, but like we talked about, graduated cylinders and other things, it depends a lot on, the printed paper inside of it and how precise that is. They tend to be pretty good, but, they can also slide up and down, so you need to calibrate your hydrometer. The great thing about hydrometers, like John was saying, you can calibrate using distilled water, and, that's 100% accurate. As long as you got the right temperature, that thing should read zero, exactly zero, and it'll be good from there on. So there are hydrometers that are more precise, but for most home brewing, get yourself any hydrometer and, do yourself a favor and check your specific gravities, because it will be very helpful for you as in your quest to make perfect beer. All right, let's take a short break, and when we come back, I want to do a little bit about length or girth or distance or circumference or whatever we're saying right after this.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Brewing great beer is a process of continuous learning, and the best books on every aspect of brewing can be found at Brewers Publications, with more than 50 awesome titles like Modern Homebrew Recipes by Gordon Strong, Designing Great Beers, the Ultimate Guide to Brewing Classic Beer Styles by Ray Daniels, American Sour Beers, Innovative Techniques for Mixed Fermentations by Michael Tonsmeyer, For the Love of Hops, The Practical Guide to Aroma, Bitterness, and the Culture of Hops by Stan Hieronymus, and Radical Brewing, Recipes, Tales, and World-Altering Meditations in a Glass by Randy Mosher, plus many, many more. These are the books and the authors with the knowledge to push your brewing farther than you thought possible. And you'll find them all at fine homebrew and book retailers everywhere. And visit the website at brewerspublications.com. Brewers Publications, all the best on beer and brewing.
Back to the two guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
All right, Grog Tag's your one-stop homebrew customization shop. They have it all from reusable beer and wine labels to durable metal signs to high-quality coasters, and everything is customizable. So get creative over on grogtag.com with one of our hundreds of templates, and we'll print it on high-quality materials and ship it out to you. It's easy. Check out grogtag.com today and use code BNARMY to save 10% on your next order. That's grogtag.com. I also want to tell you about our longtime friend and BN homie, Michael Fairbrother. Our good friend wants you guys to check out his moonlightmeadery.com. Moonlight Meadery, mead for any occasion. Moonlight meads are the reference standards for mead categories in the BJCP style guidelines. And I've tasted them. I think that's some high quality mead right there. And right now you can save 10% on 2 or more bottles by using BN Army at moonlightmeadery.com/shop. Wonderful, delicious, category defining Moonlight mead. Check them out and let them know we sent you. Use offer code BN Army at checkout at moonlightmeadery.com/shop. All right, so we were talking about specific gravity before we ended. Any thoughts to wrap up on that before we move on to length or girth or whatever it is? I'll take that as a no.
Pretty good on that.
Right. So length, it started out kind of as a joke. We were going to talk about length in the brewery and, what are you measuring in the brewery with length? But, once I started thinking about it, the things that we're measuring at our brewery every day is things like seams on cans, crowns, the crimp on crowns. So we have a gauge for that. We have micrometers that we use on the seams. We have a video. We have a seam saw, and then a video inspection camera that videos the details of the seam, and you can measure your cover hook and your first op, your second op, and all this stuff. And it's critical to proper operation of the brewery. We have a lot of tape measures. We do a lot of measuring with tape measures. I think a lot of times people don't understand how a tape measure works. Unless you've done some construction, you don't realize that the little nub on the end, it slides for a reason. So when you push it up against something, it comes in, so your measurement is correct to that point. When you hook it over the end of something, it slides out, so your measurement is correct to the end of that point. So that's why that little thing slides. It's not loose because somebody didn't do a good job manufacturing it. It's purposefully made that way, so you get a correct measurement. Most tape measures you buy from the hardware store are fairly precise. They've kind of mastered the production of that of the marks on that rule. It may not be to the 32nd of an inch once you're 25 feet out, but it's pretty darn close.
Like any measurement device, it's accurate enough for its purpose.
Right, and if you're using it to cut a piece of lumber, well, okay, you're using the same mark, you should be okay. You don't really need to know what the measure was. Right. A good tool to use around the brewery is a laser
distance finder.
Yeah, distance finder measure. They don't cost too much. You can get a really nice. I have one from Bosch that I think I paid $100 for. Use it all the time. And when you're measuring a space for fermenters, or you're measuring your building for ABC or TTB diagrams, it saves you a ton of time, because you're trying to measure 150 feet or 50 feet or whatever with a tape measure. It's a pain in the butt, where you could just stand at the end, shoot a button, and there you go, and you write down your number. So I recently had to redo our diagrams because we're going to start offering cocktails from our distillery in the tap room, and so we have to resubmit everything with all new, and they want measurements on everything. So it took me 15 minutes to go around the entire building and measure all these distances, because I had that. Very useful tool, especially vertically. You want to see what your clear height is, whether that fermenter is going to come in on its side or it can come in standing up. One of those things really helpful versus trying to get up there and dangle something.
Well, it's a two-man job, and with two ladders,
right,
versus a one-man job. It's a big difference.
So that's important. A common thing that I do is measure O-rings. So we'll have O-rings. There's so many O-rings in a brewery, and eventually something fails, and it's like, well, the O-ring. Okay, so you got this torn O-ring that you're trying to measure, and how do you figure out what size that is? Well, the way they figure out the size of these, there's the diameter of the core, the piece of rubber that goes around, right? And then there's the outside of the O-ring. And with those two measures, you can order O-rings. But you need to know those, so you need a micrometer. They have digital micrometers nowadays that are pretty good. You can get them. They have ones at Harbor Freight for $10, $20 that are actually pretty darn good. Again, it's a cheaper tool, so the precision may not be quite there, but generally when you're measuring things like O-rings, really helpful. The same thing on many other things around the brewery. You should have a micrometer. You should have some tape measures. The laser measuring device is really handy, but not critical.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned we were talking about pressure earlier, and measuring your line length is very important for balancing your draft system, right?
Absolutely, right. So you need to know, when I was redoing our cold box, I have a certain type of tubing. Well, got out the tape measure, and I'm like, all right, I need 16 feet. And, that should balance me out. So really, really handy to know these dimensions. One other thing that we'll do is we'll check the size of fermenters. If we get something in, new type of vessel, I always like to check it, double check it. They'll tell me it's a certain, volume, but by checking the diameter, checking the height, I'm able to calculate out what the actual volume should be and see if it's close enough to, what they say. There's been some rude surprises at breweries with equipment coming in and then the volume's not the same and then they're overflowing them. I can't think of what brewery it was. They were like, yeah, they told us they were 30-barrel fermenters, and, we went ahead and started pumping it over and it all came gushing out the top and found out they're like 25s. I'm like, yeah, before you fill them, just kind of sanity check. Again,
check, but it matters. Yeah.
You check with whatever your tool of choice is. What else? I mean, that's all I can really think about length at this time. You guys got anything to add, Palmer or Blickman?
I can't think of anything.
You covered it well.
That was more than you thought there was to cover about length, right?
Yeah, and you did work wood into the conversation.
I did. Right. The length of your wood is very important. And girth. One of my favorite ways to measure girth is to take a string, wrap it around, and then you can lay it out against a ruler and check your girth, or maybe a yardstick. It just depends.
Depends on
what kind of girth you're talking about,
or the laser pointer.
The laser girth, yes.
I think we've got this interesting tape measure that many people have not heard of.
The rubber tape measure?
A pie tape.
A pie tape, yes. For measuring pies?
All the markings are multiplied by pi.
Uh-huh.
So you can wrap that around a tank, for example, and instead of trying to figure out what the diameter is, you just wrap it around there and you read diameter right on the tape.
Oh, that's handy.
It is.
Well, you figure out the diameter by just running a tape around it. That's your diameter.
Yeah, but you get it in inches rather than...
Right.
Yeah, it actually gives you directly reads out the diameter.
Yeah, instead of circumference.
Oh, right.
It's a luxury item, but, who
you
doesn't
can't,
want a pie tape?
Divide by 3.14? Okay.
Oh, that's exhausting.
Yeah, after 500 tanks. I mean,
that would take a calculator, I think, or at least pen and paper. That's very interesting. I have never heard of a pie tape before. Have you just made this up? This is a product, a new Blickman Engineering product?
I'll send you one.
I need a big one, a really long one. Just saying. My tanks are big. I have very girthy tanks. At least Scott laughs.
Speechless more times than I could admit, Jamel.
Good thing Scott's here. God damn. This would be like the Crickets show.
I was thinking that was more of an application.
I'm just going to hear me shaking my head.
I should have known. I should have felt it. My spidey sense. Should have known you were shaking your head. Disgusted. Oh, well, I thought it was a good series of shows. I think we really kind of provided some interesting and useful information that I think, a lot of times people don't... they don't want to think about these things. But if you want to be a great brewer, if you want to make great beer, I think you need to think these things through. I think you need to perfect these abilities of measurements. And that's why we did these shows. So hopefully you find them very helpful. And if you find them helpful and useful, don't forget to support our fine sponsors. especially Blickman Engineering. Go to blickmanengineering.com. Check out all the goodies and great things they have there to improve your brew day. Send an email to feedback@blickmanengineering.com to tell John how much you appreciate that he pays for the show so you don't have to. Check out other sponsors, Moonlight Meadery, White Labs, Grog Tag, the Brewers Publications, all fine companies doing great work to help you improve your brew day. Check them out. And if you can, go to the brewingnetwork.com/store. Check out the stuff there. If you find any goodies that would look cool for you or your friends, pick them up, because every dollar you spend goes directly to the bottom line of the Brewing Network and helps keep all the shows on the air, and we do appreciate that. Until then, everybody, brew strong.
Brew strong, everyone.